The favorite guns of history's bad guys, Hitler's Walther, on April 20th, 1939, just a few months before the outbreak of the Second World War. Adolf Hitler celebrated his 50th birthday. Among the many gifts that were lavished on the dictator, German firearm manufacturer Karl Walther presented him with a personalized pistol. The weapon? A golden Walther PP. It was plated in gold with elaborate engravings, and an ivory hand grip which had Hitler's initials in gold. Hitler was already a fan of Walther's work and reportedly owned several pistols, including other PPs, though none as elaborate as the gold-plated gift gun. In addition, the German military's main sidearm would be the Walther P38, a replacement for the famous Luger. The Walther PP, which stands for Polizeipistole, or police pistol, was first created in 1929 as a compact and reliable semi-automatic handgun that gained popularity among both police and civilians, and it would later be used by the German military, SS, and high-ranking members of the Nazi Party. It's chambered in 7.65 mm or 32 ACP, though other calibers such as 25 and 380 are also available. There are many variants of the weapon, the most famous being the Walther PPK, or Polizeipistole criminal model, which was designed for law enforcement, particularly detectives. Many believe that the K stands for Kurz or short due to the reduced barrel length, though this is inaccurate. Hitler greatly appreciated the gift and kept it in his Munich apartment, where it stayed when Hitler and his entourage sheltered in the Führer bunker in Berlin. With the Soviets closing in, Hitler ended his life using a different and much less elaborate Walther. The fate of this pistol is unknown, presumably taken as a trophy by a Soviet soldier. The golden Walther would have a much different fate. As the war was coming to a close, an American, Lieutenant Ira Palm, and his men burst into Hitler's Munich apartment, which was abandoned. As they searched the building, Palm found the pistol in a desk drawer and tucked it in his shirt. He would be wounded in a firefight a few hours later, and he, along with the golden gun, would be rotated home to Salisbury, North Carolina. There, the gun would be gifted to Palm's pastor, Charles Woodbridge, though it's unknown why Palm would give away such an artifact. The gun would then be stolen in a burglary in 1947, only turning up in Wichita, Kansas, years later. It would pass between many owners until it was bought in the 1980s by an anonymous collector who paid a reported $100,000. It's unknown what happened to the pistol after this point, though presumably it's still in that person's collection, or that of an heir. I'm sure you guys have heard of the Walther PPK from the Bond movies, but this wasn't Bond's first pistol of choice. In the first few novels, written by Ian Fleming, he used a Beretta 418. Fleming changed it to a Walther when a fan, firearms expert Jeffrey Boothroyd, wrote to Fleming, urging him to switch the weapon due to, and I quote, his deplorable taste in firearms. Fleming agreed, and chose the Walther as a replacement for the next novel, Dr. No, and even gave Boothroyd a shout-out as the Armorer Q, who gives Bond his new weapon. In the film of the same name, Bond, played by Sean Connery, is issued with what is stated as being a Walther PPK, though in actuality, it was a standard Walther PP. How they could make that kind of mistake is beyond me. Muammar Gaddafi, Browning high power, Libyan dictator. Muammar Gaddafi was known for his eccentric tastes. His clothing, palaces, and even his bodyguards were nothing if not ostentatious, and this trend extended to his firearm collection. Over his time as dictator, he amassed a significant arsenal of weapons, many of which were plated in gold, a gaudy reflection of his reign. Though he possessed many gold-plated guns, One in particular stands out. When the regime was overthrown in 2011, the deposed dictator would be captured by rebels and executed. In one of the most iconic photos of the incident, one of the rebels triumphantly holds aloft a pistol as a visual symbol of the downfall of Gaddafi. The pistol was a gilded Browning high power, a popular firearm that's been in service with militaries and police forces around the world since the mid-1930s. This particular weapon was chambered in 9mm parabellum, and it was plated with gold, with an elaborate floral engraving. On the wooden hand grips were golden emblems, one a portrait of Gaddafi himself on one side, and the emblem of the Khamis Brigade, a military unit directly loyal to Gaddafi, on the other. The pistol was picked up by Mohammed El-B, who was then a 17-year-old freedom fighter. He's had the weapon in his possession since that time and has been contacted numerous times by potential buyers who offer the equivalent of millions of dollars for the gilded Browning. So far, he's refused, fearing that many potential buyer could be a Gaddafi loyalist looking for revenge. Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was no stranger to the power of propaganda, and throughout his career made extensive use of highly curated imagery. Though he was the mastermind of the organization, not a frontline fighter, he was often photographed with a rifle nearby. At first glance, this weapon, an AK-74, seemed subdued compared to the ostentatious personal firearms of others, but there's more to this choice than it may seem. The AK-74 was created by the Soviet Union as a short-barreled version of the AK-74. Chambered in 5.45 Vex 39mm, the weapon is compact, measuring in at 29 inches. And it weighed in at just under 6 pounds. First issued in 1979, the AK-74 was given to tank crews, helicopter pilots, and other vehicle operators that needed access to firepower in a confined space. Because they were first issued to Soviet forces the same year as the start of their campaign in Afghanistan, local Mujahideen fighters could not acquire one through the black market, the primary source for their weaponry. Instead, the only way they could get their hands on such a unique piece of equipment would be to take one from a Soviet soldier. Since they were issued to tank and helicopter crews, possessing an AK-74 implied that the owner destroyed one of the vehicles. Even today, years after the Soviet invasion, it is still a potent status symbol, one that Osama bin Laden was all too aware of. Bin Laden has been seen with an AK-74 in numerous photos, propped against a wall within easy reach. It's unknown if he acquired the weapon in combat or if he simply purchased it later, but the symbolic value can't be overstated. By showing off such a weapon, he was likening himself to a Mujahideen fighter during the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, and used this imagery to rally support. We don't really know if Osama bin Laden actually fought with his AKs. The night he was taken out by Navy SEALs, he did have a weapon on him. It was described as an AK-47, which is vague and not really helpful in identifying the exact type of AK used. The rifle, along with many other artifacts, are on display at the CIA Museum, located inside CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Unfortunately, access to the museum is virtually impossible to obtain, being available to CIA employees and select and specially invited guests. No one here on the Simple History team has ever received an invite, so we just have to speculate about what's inside. Not all weapons with ignominious reputations were used by one person. Sometimes, an entire class of firearms gets a reputation for infamy, regardless of the actual history behind their use.